Hi, my name is Derek Hill. I was the production designer on the 2007 film Into the Wild, directed with Sean Penn. I spoke about my experiences on the film for the podcast Below the Line, and to accompany the episode's release, I've compiled a collection of my photos I wanted to share with everyone. And the first particular photo was the very first time I saw the real bus. We arrived by snowmobile, probably six of us, and Sean Penn arrived first, and he needed 20, 25 minutes in the bus alone. We had no idea what he was doing. We found out that he'd brought provisions stuffed in his ski suit for the lost souls that the family had sent for Sean to deliver to them. So each of us got our time in the bus to take it all in and see what it meant to us. Look around. It was my first time to really focus on the bus, and that moment was really special. And one of the guys said, "Let me take a photo of you in that moment." The second photo is one that we created our own bus. Sean wanted to protect the real bus, so we created our own bus. We found a location for it. We had to get it into position. So it wasn't an easy task. As you can see, we have a bulldozer there. Earlier, it was on skids that we made out of highway railings, and we drug it across the frozen river, across the thing, and now we're getting it set into a position. And we had some red stakes in the ground where Sean wanted it. And so the bulldozer guy, and this is my first time dealing with him, it was like, no, it's close enough. I said, no, it's not close enough. We're going to move it. So it was jockeying the bus back and forth with each end of the bulldozer to get it right on the stakes. And then the next photo is our bus in position. And you can see about where the guy in the red shirt is. That's where we put the tree, which we made the shower for Sean, for Emil's character, Christopher McCandless. And so basically that tree was the only thing that we added to that location besides greens and flowers and things. The next photo. So one of the things we did when we shot Into the Wild, we shot in 4 different seasons in Alaska: spring, summer, winter, fall. It's not a normal thing that you do when you're making a film of this nature and the budget, but Sean needed it. And so we captured all the moments. So this is when we first came up to the bus after it had set for the winter season, and we came back to shoot. The next slide is basically, you can see we had one path going in, and so we made sure that we always used the same path going in and walking out. I was a very stickler on this. I knew where we were going to shoot and all of our shooting area, and basically to the right of the bus was all the hero spot, and off to the left of the tree line is where the river was, that we basically determined that that's where we need the location. The next slide, as you can see, is where we came back in the late spring. And then you can see how the bus's position was. We had chairs outside. And then the one below it, we started adding the flowers around the bus, which were important for the character. And then Chris is eating some of the stuff as we went through the story. The next slide is one of the funniest slides, I think. It was Bart the bear, and this was one of the particular scenes where Chris was basically starving himself as we went along in the show. And at this point, he's about 115 pounds. And so we had the bear trainer, the father and the son, which are back in the blue shirt, and the guy with the bucket on the right. And of course, we had all the brave guys, Sean Penn and the director of photography and the AD, and I'm out with my camera filming it so that we would know exactly the path of the bear. And then, as you could see, the bear started towards me. And then, at the last second, I kind of looked up, and then all of a sudden the bear got on all hind legs, and everybody else hiding. But it was just one of those moments that you capture and you go, wow, I can't believe that I did that. The next slide is one of the scenes that we stopped along the side of the road, And if you'll remember, it was one of those moments in the show where Christopher McCandless was standing in the field. His eyes were watering. He was crying. He was taking in the nature of the film, and then the wild animals that ran across. So we did a lot of the photography where we were along the road, and we saw moments that we just jumped out. We took photos of it, and then we did reverse shot later on of Emil standing there. The next shot was one of the things, once we found the placement for the magic bus, which you can see these two slides, we were stopped. That's Sean in the background, and I'm on the phone talking to one of the crew members. We'd stopped to refuel the helicopter as we made our journey across Alaska, finding the certain paths and certain ways. We found the bus location by snowmobiles, as you can see in the river down below, and you can see our path. But then we weren't sure exactly where we were, so we went up in a helicopter. We spotted it, and then we knew that that's where we were going to place the bus. So that was one of the moments of really seeing the beauty of Alaska, is being able to take it the helicopter ride. And we landed on the top of mountains where Emil did climbing and all that kind of stuff. The next slide is, that's our camera helicopter at the location. You can see it's definitely winter. We're as warm as we could get. And I thought, wow, this is great. A moment of this beautiful helicopter in the middle of Alaska. The next slide down is me driving a snowmobile, taking a selfie with pulling a sled with all of our supplies. And that's my art director and / construction coordinator, John Richardson. So I got to pull him in the sled, and we basically, from where it was 20 something miles out, we basically sledded into the location and had all of our supplies and set dressing and stuff. The next slide is, like I said earlier, as you can see, we basically were riding down the road, and it was the DP, Eric Gauthier, David Webb, the first AD, Emil Hirsch played Christopher McCandless, and Sean Penn, the director. And then we had a prop person that would carry all the props. We found this perfect spot of no tracks, no nothing, with this great mountain in the background. And Sean would say, Emil, get out. We're going to walk across this frame line. And on that same day, you could see now we're on the highway where Emil is tracking on a tight shot. And that's David Webb, our first AD, with a cardboard box that we found in the car with us, blowing his face where the wind's blowing in his face and the camera's doing a tight shot. The next one was one of these places where we basically put Emil up on the top of the car, and we were shooting like a 360 around Emil, like he was making his way through the journey of Alaska. The next one is I think the beginning of the Stampede Trail, which where the road maintenance ends and where Christopher McCandless was dropped off at this spot. And when the guy says, well, do you have any boots? And gave him his boots. And so we were putting the sign there that the state maintenance ends, no footprints, no anything. The guy drops him off, and then he takes off, walking to his journey to the magic bus. The next one is, that's our base camp for my construction and painters and art crew in the middle of nowhere. We just made a camp. We did our tables and chairs, had our tarps where we left stuff overnight. And then we had lunch out there. We made our lunch and cooked our lunch and did this stuff like that. The next slide is a picture of David Webb, our first AD. As you can see, we're near the path leading into the magic bus. As you can see, we have a pretty steady road going behind us. And earlier I showed you the shot off to the behind me on my left is where the bus is and the pure snow and everything. As we got into Alaska, we had several different ways of means of transportation. When we arrived in the winter, we took the snowmobile across the frozen rivers, and that was no problem. As we made our journey further on, we had to get in the vehicle behind me that forged across the river. Oh, on the next slide, we had to figure out how we were going to cross the river. So the river was frozen when we first went through. When we came back in the spring, the river had thawed, more flow was down the thing. So we had to build a bridge to get across the river. And I didn't get the whole bridge in the shot, but what I did was Sean Penn decided that he was going to take the ATV across and cross the river that way. It was deeper than the ATV. It didn't stall out on him. He did float downstream a little bit, but he did make it across. And that's just the adventuresome of our director, Sean. In the shot below that was the rapids, where basically we found this area where we were in the boat when Christopher McCandless, the moose, crossed the river by us, and then it was like up on the hillside where they had to make their way up the hill. The next slide was a scouting day that you could see. We're taking a break because we were, you go a long ways with these, and it's all day a scout. So we were trying to find the perfect spot for the shot down below, where Christopher McCandless played like he was king of the mountain. And so that shot, you could see the safety guy behind him and everything. The guy ducked down, and then we took the shot of Christopher McCandless looking on the landscape, and then that was a visual effect plate that we put in behind him. During my tenure on the show, especially when I went to Alaska, I scouting, and I wasn't always with the crew, and I would drive looking for the next places to shoot, and I would see these places like the one in this photograph, and I just pulled off the side of the road and had to shoot these. And I said, it's one of the most beautiful places that I'd been to. Everywhere you look, it's picturesque. That's the mountain behind us, and then the famous mountain, and then the one below that, the colors, the different textures and everything, which was basically a great thing. The next slide is our journey onto the Grand Canyon and the Colorado River. And then we have the location manager with us. We have the producer, we have the DP, we have the first AD, and we have our director. And then we have our river scout. And this is where we were taking a break along the Colorado River, going through the Grand Canyon. We went through about 130 to 40 miles of the river. We could basically figure out which place was the best place to do the scenes. And this is where we took a break. And I believe it was where we had encountered the rapids, so we were all wet. And you could see the next slide was just beautiful, picturesque as we're going down through the canyons. So as we went along the Colorado River, we would come across various places that we saw that there was a path or somewhere else that led up to a cave. So we stopped here, and the guide said, you should go up and take a look at this. And of course, there's a rope to help you up. There's that so-called ladder, but that's Sean up at the top. And then that's David Webb. And then I'm following up. And we went up there and we looked at this beautiful cave. And then we ended up using this cave in our show, where Christopher McCandless went up there and just had a private moment with himself along there. The next slide, I believe, is taking us almost where the hillside on the left-hand side, the bank, was where Christopher McCandless ran across a hippie and the gal that were at the river there. And then the next slide takes us to Cape Disappointment, which is the first AD, David Webb, and I. And a lot of times when we were doing Into the Wild, there was moments that we, I always tried to have someone in the shot if Sean was not with me, or if Sean was with me, he just staged shots the way he was planning on them for the movie. So that's what that shot is. We're at Cape Disappointment, and then that's the reverse shot where Christopher McCandless spent the night on the ocean there with the hippies. And then the next shot is me, king of the hill. And basically what happened there is it was in high tide, so you can't walk the beach. You've got to take the mountain path to get in. So the place that we shot was only accessible in low tide unless you went on the roof mountainside. The next shot was the seagulls, which we ended up, when I scouted there, I took videos and I took still photographs to show Sean the magic of the seagulls and the birds that were flying. And of course, as you see the movie, you'll see that image in there that we did the same thing. The next frame is when I was scouting in South Dakota. It was just, Christopher McCandless making his way north to Alaska, and where he meets Wayne Westerberg, where he did the job as doing the wheat and stuff like that. So hitchhiking, I just found some great roads, and that's what that road was for. When we got to South Dakota, in the story, Christopher McCandless, once he was going down the Colorado River, got down into Arizona, and then he discovered the wild Mustangs. We shot our wild Mustang scene in South Dakota. And so I went out to look, and as you can see, I shot long lens, and as they start to stampede, you can't really track them. You can't really capture them. And then you get close and you see the slide below where all of a sudden they ran off on the other hillside. That was a journey that we went to there. After talking with the keeper of the land, they said, well, what you need to do for like 30 days is you need to put feed down every day, and they'll come to the same spot. And so when I went back to shoot, as you could see, they start swarming and going around, and that's what these shots are for. And I didn't have a shot here, but I put my art director in the shot with a bucket to feed them. And then basically, when we shot the film, Emil did the same thing, Christopher McCandless. So the wheat fields, the story about the wheat fields is a long story where we had Vince Vaughn, who played Wayne Westerberg, and we had him in like the second week of July. And the farmers in Texas said, that's where I'm from. So I said, how do I figure out where the wheat is going to ripen in July? And they said, well, once the wheat starts ripening in Texas, it goes about 10 miles per week. And so then I had to figure out how many weeks it was till July. And then I started drawing the circles on the arcs on the American map. And then I found in Carthage, South Dakota, where the wheat was. And this is like one of my guys out in the field that basically to give Sean an idea of the scope of the wheat field. And we shot it at the wheat fields that really worked out. The next frame is in Astoria, Oregon. It's the Astoria Bridge leading over to Washington, which led us to Cape Disappointment. Christopher McCandless basically camped under the bridge for a while before he moved across into Washington on his way to Alaska. The bridge below is taken from a higher shot, looking down on the bridge. The next frame is in Page, Arizona area, which it's the start of the Colorado River and the mountains, the Grand Canyon. And so basically we were doing Christopher walking and hitchhiking, and that's what that scene is in the background. The scene below is in Anza Borrego, and that is Sean Penn. I got Sean Penn. I was the cameraman that day, and Sean Penn made the path up the mountain, which in the story and the show, you'll see how Holbrook made the same path. So we basically marked it, and then that's how Sean and I worked, because we'd done 5 films together. The last slide there is Sean and I in El Golfo, Mexico, where another part of the journey where at the tip of the Colorado River runs into Mexico, which runs down to El Golfo, where he spent a bit of his time as well before he started heading back north. But that was kind of my journey. That I took 20,000 photos on the trip. I just wanted to share a few of you after doing the podcast and sharing it with a few people of what we did. it's one of those things that I think, well, you know what? I need to make a book because the journey for me and Christopher McCandless was life changing. That's my story.
Derek, thanks for sharing this. In case there are any new listeners, my name is Skid, and I'm the host of Below the Line. You can listen to my full conversation with Derek at our website, belowtheline.biz, that's B-I-Z, or search for us wherever you get your podcasts. Hope you'll join us again soon.